Hello, everyone. Today, I am so incredibly excited for this session of Badass Bytes. My name is Parisa Bania, and I am the CEO and business whisperer of Sixth Sense Strategy. Welcome if you're watching this live. Also, welcome if you're watching this recorded, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or the Sixth Sense Strategy YouTube channel. As you all know, if you've read some of my posts on LinkedIn, or if you've seen some of my Short Friday videos, or if you've been a part of other Badass Bites sessions that I've had since the middle of the summer, I have an unabiding love for modern badasses. They are audacious leaders who have audacious goals, and they go 80 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. They have things that they are doing in life that will have outsized positive impact on all of us. And it is a distinct pleasure and honor I have to work with them. And also a distinct honor and pleasure to have Sepideh Nasiri join us today on this version of Badass Bytes on being a disruptor. Sepideh, welcome. And I don't want to introduce you because I will do a lousy job of it. Tell everyone who you are, what you've done in life, what your passions are. Don't leave women too out. Just let us know all of your goodness, and you're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Parisa. And it's such a pleasure to be here. And I'm just in awe how much you empower women and empower people around the world, and giving us a space to be able to be ourselves and authentically communicate with the world as well. So thank you for having me and for this conversation. Hi, everyone. My name is Sepideh Nasiri. I'm the founder and CEO of Women of MENA in Technology. It is a nonprofit organization based in Silicon Valley, in the heart of San Francisco. But it is a global brand that focuses on closing the diversity and gender gap in STEM for the MENA descent community, an unseen community and minority, community as well. So with that said, who am I and what do I believe I'm a global citizen. I've lived and worked in so many different countries. So I feel home everywhere, where my friends, my family is, and where my work and impact takes me. I also think that as a serial entrepreneur, I do look at the world a little bit differently, is how can we not only leave a legacy, but really leave impact on people. So that's one of the things that's really important to me. I started my journey at 4 years old, moving out of Iran. I'm Persian, to Europe, Germany, lived there for about 11 years before moving to the US. And in the US, landed down the street from Sun Microsystem and Apple, and my family went to school, graduated from college in Southern California, and really redefined the way I wanted to live. I started my first company right out of college with many interesting people who were much wiser and much older and much more experienced than I was. And that took me into the entrepreneurship world, working in Silicon Valley again with so many different incredible founders and innovators. Had a chance to work on incredible products and services, and found out that there weren't a lot of women in the workplace, in the tech workplace, and I wanted to really change that. And that's where my journey started, in joining different projects, joining different companies, and building out companies that can support women in STEM. From Women 2.0, where I was the VP, I came in when it was a passion project, building out a company that globally impacts women, and lots of unicorns today who many of you know or use, like Stitch Fix, Rent the Runway, and Eventbrite were in our community back in the days. And we learned that when we provide women with resources and a support system, and access, particularly, they can thrive. So that took me to my next journey, which is Women of MENA in Technology, which is also Persian Women in Tech, is our which we rebranded from, and helping an unseen community today. Thank you, Parisa.
So tell us a little bit more about Women of MENA in Technology. And I want to get into that first before we go into the topic of disruption, because that's going to form the basis of our conversation. You are shining a light on women that are typically hidden. And so tell us a little bit more about why it was why it is you're so passionate, rather, to create this worldwide community of women from MENA backgrounds and shining a light on them when the light typically shown on them is not positive nor empowering.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was very strange that when I spoke at conferences, no one looked like me. Even when they were female, they didn't look like me.
Yeah.
They didn't come from a region where I was from. And I always questioned that, because at home, we were told that, oh, most Middle Eastern or Iranians, they become doctors, lawyers, or engineers. Where are the engineers?
I did not get that memo.
And so, where are these engineers? Where are these techie women from my background and from my region? And so, conversation had moved on just from bringing women in tech to diversity in tech. And for me, of course, diversity meant also my community. Where is my community? And so with that said, that's where my journey started. I wanted to find where they are and who they are. And in Silicon Valley, they should have been everywhere. I didn't meet any of them. And so as an entrepreneur, it just opened my eyes into, here's a problem. Let's find a solution. And I really want to make sure that the next generation and the current generation, because we all look at Silicon Valley, right? At the end of the day, anything that comes out here is going to be shined on. And you look at Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, and they're always the ones, and of course, Elon as well. Elon, I don't want to forget about you. But they don't look like me. They're not from my background. They didn't have those challenges. And I wanted to make sure that there's inspiration and also representation for our community, so that someone in the Middle East, or even in a different state, or even here in San Francisco, is watching the news, or listening to code Recode, or any conference, that they can be inspired and they can nod their head because they understand those challenges that are being spoken of, instead of feeling silo and not having a feeling of a sense of belonging, whether they're at work or whether they're at a conference, or believing that they could be that person one day as well, especially since these women are incredibly talented. I mean, when you look at the data itself, and I know we techies love data and we go by data, is 68 to 70% of college graduates in STEM are women in the MENA region. That number doesn't exist in the US. It's less than 30% in Europe and in Canada as well. And 1 out of 3 founders of startups is also a woman, either head of it's a woman or founded by a woman in the Middle East, but you don't see that here. So when you have that potential, yet you don't provide access, you don't provide insight, you don't share the story and elevate them, there is no inspiration. And so I wanted to change that.
So that is a brilliant segue into what you and I are talking about today. So what I've done, Sepideh, you are very familiar with this, is I have curated a list of 14 traits of modern badasses, and I will share with everyone if they're interested in looking at that blog post. About 14 traits. There is what in previous Badass Bytes session, we've talked about no crying in baseball, fit faux, keeping it real. Today, you and I are talking about disruption and what you've shared about creating visibility on a group of women that typically does not get any visibility, to me is like quintessential disruption. You're making us sit back and take notice and say, hey, wait a minute, this seems like, I'm saying it, not you saying, this seems like BS. Why isn't it that we don't know more about them? And then how do we create a place and a space for us to pay more attention to them? So let me share the description I have written. This is again a lift from the blog post about the traits. You are a disruptor. You challenge norms. You don't make the donuts so much as that you make new donut recipes. You're not afraid to tell it like it is, and you're not afraid to interrupt patterns. You don't disrupt for disruption's sake, though. Your energy is directed towards helping your team and your clients get to where they need to go. This to me is you. And when you and I were talking about, out of all of the options of things that you talked about, you said, well, I like this one, but I also like the disruption one. And I said that we're not discussing this. It turns out I'm like, no, actually you are a disruptor. And I was hoping that you would pick disruption as your topic. It seems to me that disruption is in your blood, but in service of the greater good. And I think a lot of people miss this point of, it's not like you wake up in the morning and you say, how can I interrupt patterns? How do I ask questions? Or it's not being challenging for challenging's sake, that there is a 10-year goal that you have in your mind, or maybe even a 25-year goal that you have in your mind. So tell everyone who's paying attention and listening and is really interested in you, why is it you lean into disruption and why it is that you think it's so important?
I think it's a mindset first and foremost. It's not something, I have always questioned the why in everything. And I think that's something that, disruptors are always like, why is it done this way? And we haven't changed anything. And why hasn't it changed? And how can we change? And why can't we make more space? And so for me, disrupting, it wasn't that, as you mentioned, that I think about that. I just want to see how can we improve things? How can we make sure that there is impact? Of course, obviously, I'm very passionate about impact, and particularly women and in STEM. But it goes further as I got involved in questioning the whole, aspect of things or processes, or, even looking at nonprofits. We are disrupting the way we work as a nonprofit. Of course, we are following the regulations and processes, but on top of it, we are rethinking the way the longevity of a nonprofit. Most, organizations are only depending on their donors. And so, but that's why they may not survive after 5 years. And so, because you're hitting the same donors and you're going with the same strategy, you have to evolve. I think nonprofits have to evolve. Your idea has to be flexible, that it evolves, it grows. I mentioned earlier, Persian Women in Tech became Women of MENA in Technology because our community grew. And I could have pressed and just stick with what we were, but that didn't make sense. And so we grew up as an organization, and that provided more opportunities, that provided more impact, that provided more space. And so same thing goes, how we do things is we are very collaborative. I believe that the mission that we have taken on cannot be done by just one organization. So collaborating with other organizations that are in similar field, or in the, have the same mission and interest, and aligning our forces is important, which we do. So I think, as disruptors, as you would say, is we want to question the way things are and change them for the better, with new ideas. And the why is going to create those new ideas.
And so, one of the things that I've noticed with my clients who are disruptors, and I've certainly noticed it with you, is the ability to lean into ambiguity, the ability to embrace ambiguity, the ability to say, okay, we've never done this before. I've never done this before. It has never done this before. And people like you are like, awesome. Let's lean in and see what happens when we lean into this ambiguity. So how has your ability to embrace ambiguity served you and regardless of your current adventure now or your previous adventures?
Right time at the right place with some luck. I don't know. That would be one thing, but I think the most important part is also the support system that I've had throughout. You know, my parents, my mentors, and so forth. I didn't have a fear. You know, sometimes, and I think whether, and I don't want to say it's a gender thing. Fear is fear. Everyone can have
Right.
fear of the unknown. I just plunged into it from a very young age. If you look at, you know, from 4-year-olds going from one country to another,
Right.
meeting new people, meeting new schools, and so forth. So for me, the unknown was not a challenge. It was more a new thing to discover, a new way of discovering things. And I think it's really important for innovation. It's really important if you want to do something and create something, you have to embrace the unknown and the fears that you have as well. There is always this conversation about, you know, what if you fail, or what if it's not the right thing? So what? It's, you know, you live one life, and if you're not discovering new things, then you're constantly going to be the same person. You're constantly doing the same thing. Essentially, you become a robot.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And one of the things that I've said to my clients, and I have to remind this to myself, is no one is going to take you to jail for conducting an experiment. Like the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to try something and you find out, ooh, this isn't going to work. That is a data point to act on for whatever it is that you decide to do next. And one of the things I notice about disruptors like you is like, keep on accumulating failures or setbacks or whatever, mistakes, whatever it is that you want to call it. They're not actually mistakes. They're probably miracles in the making. But keep on accumulating those things because they are in service of the thing that is the next thing on the horizon that maybe you haven't fully envisioned yet. So tell us a little bit about how you've embraced, let's call it a setback. Let's call it I didn't quite anticipate that happening. How does being a disruptor help you manage through that?
You know, first recognizing it, right? A lot of us just focus on doing instead of also taking time to really assess where are we with this work or this passion or what we wanted to accomplish. And from there, some of us have a really hard time asking for help. For conversations. I call it sanity check. I have plenty of those sanity check conversations on so many different levels with different people. Female, male. I do believe that you have to surround yourself with so many different types of people. And those have helped me recognize even something that is not working can work in a different way. Or hold off and pause on things and stick to that. You know, you have a gut feeling, and I have it at least, and it's just, you know, before you know, kind of a thing. And so when that happens, you kind of have to figure it out and move forward from it. Find the tools, find the people to help you dig yourself out of where you are.
Yeah, and so when let's talk specifically about women of MENA and technology a
Mhm.
little bit more, because it is the perfect example for disruption. You know, we've established that these women previously didn't get any airplay. And then what's also true, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that a lot of times if they're at the more senior level, they're the only the only woman at the table, and they
Yeah.
may also be the only woman of color at the table. And so all of this intersectionality of struggle, that also is what you may be experiencing now. There are likely a lot of people out there saying, Sepideh, why are you investing all of this time, effort, and energy to create a worldwide organization for women of MENA backgrounds in technology? There's a little thing called LinkedIn. There's a little thing called Chief. Why?
Yeah.
Why are you making everyone sit up and take notice and say, no, actually, this is significant? Help us understand that better.
Well, I did receive a lot of those, and those conversations. Why don't you just make it women? Why don't you take out the rest of it? Like that. This, I think, we it's now proven that having a niche is actually really important. If we all generalize and we all general, then
Yeah.
there is no difference in your work or who you serve or how you serve. I'll give you an example, which is completely different, but even how we curate a product and service for someone, if you don't have a niche, you're going to miss on it. And it's and as an example, the auto industry, with their safety, when it crashes, and if you don't have the right safety in place for women, and most of these safeties were done on mannequins that look like men, so there is more women actually dying in crashes because there wasn't anything curated for them and it wasn't a niche. So this is an extreme, of course, but I think the niche was really important to recognize an area that is unseen, that hasn't been given attention to. And when you look at even the market size and the opportunity that was there, I saw a vision that a lot of people might not have seen. I saw, without bias, something that others didn't see, because sometimes we have biases. Even we want to
Right.
just hide everything, right? We want to hide that we are from a certain nationality, or
Right.
from a background and so forth. For me, I was in a position where I was able to shed all of those and just see a problem, a
Right.
challenge, and I wanted to identify and work through that.
And one of the things that I think is so striking about the work that you're doing is that you're making all of the women, whether or not they're in STEM or not, that are from the Middle East, say, is this actually my moment to stand up and say, this is my identity, and step into the power of the identity, as opposed to hiding
Mhm.
behind or trying to make ourselves a little bit more palatable or acceptable to Western culture, let's say.
Yeah.
I remember growing up in the United States during the time of the Iranian Revolution. My parents said, if anyone asks you where you're from, say Turkey. And so I said, well, why is this? They said, well, our family actually is Azerbaijani, which is Turkish, and so if you say Turkey, then that's palatable and acceptable. And so, but now what we're saying is, I am not going anywhere. This is what my identity is.
Mhm.
This is the power that I bring to the table. And instead of living with the stereotype, or instead of making myself small to make you, person on the other side of the table, comfortable, I am actually going to do the thing that's opposite. That's really messy and edgy.
Yeah, I think it's also makes a lot of people uncomfortable sometimes as well. And maybe that opens conversations,
Yeah.
perspective of what the men or women looks like, or who we are. There is a perception out there, and we want to debunk that perception as well. There are all kinds of women that look different, act different,
Yep.
have different ambitions and dreams in the MENA region or from the MENA descent as well. And that's all okay. I believe that, be who you want to be authentic to what your dreams are. And it's also okay to showcase the different sides instead of having just one example. And it's really important. And that goes for any minority. I think
Right.
debunking those, perception is really important, especially in STEM, because that is the future. You look at technology and innovation, it's impacting everyone, regardless of where you live in the world. And these women are working on those innovative products.
100%. And I have one more question and then we're going to wrap. Tell me about your relationship with being messy and edgy in disruption. It's not always 1 + 1 = 2. And so we talked about ambiguity, but then there's also the mess and the edges of being a disruptor. Can you share with us a little bit more about that?
Can you explain a little bit the mess part? Because I'm a super organized person. But
yeah, so I know, but it's related to this idea of ambiguity. So I am a big fan of saying throw stuff. I usually use another word, but throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. I don't mind that because I'm curious to see what gets produced out of it. And that can be extremely messy. That can be extremely edgy, not only for the person on the other side of the table, but for yourself, because you might be embracing a risk that for you might be a little too much, and yet you're doing it anyway. So how do you deal with times where, wow, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, and this feels messy, this feels edgy, but I'm going to do it anyway?
This happened recently, actually. We took on a project, and it's definitely different, and it's definitely messy, and but I think, one thing is taking control, even in the messiness. What I mean is going back to what our mission is, taking that time to think about, okay, this happened, or this is the result of what we throw onto the wall, and now this is what we are receiving for it, and how can we turn it around into what the work is that we really want to do. And so there is a lot of noise always in the work that you do, especially for disruptors, I believe, and really staying true to the authentic way of your doing things and bringing people back to that conversation and mission and the vision that we have shines a light on what we need to do. And I think that's one of the jobs of a leader of any project, or company, is being able and capable to do that. Every day I would say things can happen, and sometimes you have to say no, and that's okay. And sometimes you have to pivot, and that's okay. That's what it means, embracing the unknown, I would say, and being okay with that too. You take things, entrepreneurship is not easy. Doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or for-profit, and so forth, that it has its challenges, and doing good is not easy. I don't know who said doing good is easy. I wish it was. It's actually really hard. And so just staying true to, your mission and what you really were envisioning, and making sure that your team is fully aware. You don't do this alone. It's, for us, it's like over 100 people working on these things. So making sure everybody's on the same page and working through it.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up being clear on the mission, as well as making sure that the team, whether they're volunteers or they're your board or they're people that may actually be employees, whatever it is, that everyone is in alignment with what the mission is and what the vision of success looks like, because you can't do anything without having a clear picture of what it is that you're meant to do. So one of the things, Sepideh, that I know that you and your team are working on is your conference that's coming up in the beginning of November. They can find out, if they go to the Women of Meta and Technology website, if they go to the events tab, they'll be able to find the conference there. Share with us a little bit about what the conference is going to cover, and why it is that all of us should be interested and engaged in attending.
Thank you for that. The conference is one of its kind. It's the only conference currently in the world for 4 years in a row now, focusing on the women of MENA and technology. MENA being, for those who don't know, Middle East and North African descent. And so it's a 2-day conference. We learn every year, and we obviously add on. We listen to our community. This year, it's a 2-day conference that has 2 different time zones. So first day is on Dubai time zone. Second day is on San Francisco time zone.
Nice.
So we are servicing and making sure that everyone can be included. The difference between this one and the last or other conferences, it's Accelerate MENA is the theme. And Accelerate means that they are already at a stage in where they are. We don't need to just empower them, or we don't need to create and potentially push them, but we need to support them in a way to get to the next level. These women have already incredible talent, smarts, education, but they don't have, or they lack the support system. Access is, I think, is the main thing. So this 2-day conference includes speakers, incredible speakers we would never be able to have in person, but we're able to have this virtual, thanks to Hopin. And
awesome sponsor.
They're such incredible company and what they have established. Of course, co-founded by a MENA person.
Of course.
And today is full of different type of engagement, from keynotes to panels, but also additionally from mentorship to workshops. And I think that's really important in having these authentic conversation, but also learning and engaging and getting to know each other. Companies can sponsor, companies can contribute by having recruiters on site. And last year we had over 11,000 attendees globally, which is incredible. And we're hoping to double that number this year. And one thing that is our mission really is access, as I mentioned. And access means providing opportunities and closing barriers. Last year, we were able to give many free tickets to our partners to be able to support these women in attending this conference. So through the sponsorships that we receive, we turn this around and give our partners, these are local organizations that are supporting women in STEM in the MENA region, by the way. So that's the collaborative part. We highlight these companies and these organizations, but also provide them with free tickets to their communities to attend, so that we really have the right community in our conference to, benefit from it. And at the end of the day, every company that's sponsoring is not only committing to diversity and inclusion and supporting an unseen community, but really also are putting their money behind these women they want to support as well. And I encourage everyone to be part of that. I know, Parisa, you're going to be there leading a conversation as well. We're super excited about this.
I'm excited
investing in ourself is so important. And I know the conversation you will lead is going to be so impactful for women leaders to understand, how important it is to investing in ourselves and our personal growth and development.
100%. So as a recap, here is the website. If people would like to travel over there, womenofmenatandtechnology.com. And if there are senior level sponsors, senior level leaders who are sponsors of DEI initiatives, you're interested in learning more, this is a good first place to go. But if you are the head of DEI of a major company, or any company actually that really cares about this, this is a way that you can reach out to Sepideh directly. I have attended virtually all of the conferences and events that this organization has put together. And the fact that you and your team are fearlessly leaning in and shining a light on a group of women that normally do not get any kind of attention, I think is so amazing and so beautiful. Sepideh, thank you so much for joining me today in this conversation about disruption. So for the rest of you joining live or watching this recorded, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, here's how you can reach out to me, Parisa at sixthsensestrategy.com. Happy to be helpful in any way possible. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you, Parisa.